I think with that, we can move into our main topic, the state of security tokens in 2019 here. And for those of you who are with us starting off the year, they might remember that the end of 2018 ended on a pretty high note with Open Finance becoming the first exchange trading platform to go live, listing the Spice VC Fund token. Now, obviously, 2019 has seen some immense progress since that. Why don't we take a look at some of the highlights? Maybe, Kyle, you can give us a review here of the landscape today.
Yeah, let's do a little review of some of the high-level landscape stuff first. So what we've got here, we've got over 10 billion in announced security token pipelines between just Bowens Group, the Gulf families, and BPG Pactual alone. So a lot of these institutions really driving some serious volume. We've got 14 countries that have legalized and codified rules for specifically defining security tokens. We've got 4 issuance companies that have registered or have received their transfer agent licenses even just here in the US. Over 40 different token issuance platforms located all around the world. 9 different broker-dealers that announced a specific focus on the security token space. 3 major banks that have issued tokenized bonds. Those include Santander, the World Bank, and Societe Generale. To date, almost 600 million has been invested into security token infrastructure companies. This includes Bitbond, iStocks, Dharma, Figure, Upvest, Fundament Group, Open Finance, and many, many more, some of which we'll also get into later. Over 250 security tokens have launched in total and counting. More than 250 million has been estimated to be raised through security tokens. The exact number for that obviously is really difficult to calculate, but we used as much research as we could, and we're sitting around that number. We've got Aspen Coin, Smartland, Student Housing, Realties Properties, and maybe even Bitbond that have proved real estate demand. 3 live exchanges trading at least 8 tokens. A secondary market cap of 72 million with hundreds of thousands of dollars in total trading volume, and over 50 additional international exchanges in the works, both here in the US as well as around the world, with more than half of them expecting to go live in the first half of 2020, which is so exciting.
Amazing. You know, what I capture from that is the exchange market is about to 10x. We have an insane amount of tokenizations coming down in the pipeline from very institutional grade issuers. And we obviously have a very healthy infrastructure. Lots of investments, lots of new companies, lots of innovation, and lots of different players all around the world testing things and making security tokens happen. As I always like to say, 2017 was sort of the year of the concept year for security tokens. 2018 was the year these infrastructure companies came to market and raised money. 2019 is about deploying that capital and putting it to work and building out that actual infrastructure. And I think that's absolutely what's happened here today over the last year. We're clearly able to see that a lot of tokenizations have occurred. A lot of STOs have successfully raised money. A lot of different infrastructure companies are trying different things, and major institutions are starting to take advantage of the technology, while governments around the world are recognizing and acknowledging it. But as always, the devil is in the details. And over the show itself, we've had 2 companies of the week every week. You know, I think we can dwindle out of that some of these very, very key highlights and really share with our listeners, Kyle, some of the awesome things that have been happening specifically within the security token space this year.
Absolutely. What's the first one on your mind?
And I'm going to kick it off with HSBC.
Okay.
Because they did 2 weeks of amazing news. The first week, they actually won your company of the week because they had announced that they were going after the $15 trillion Asian bond market with plans to do tokenization working with the Singapore Exchange. And then they also, right afterwards, announced that they'll be intending to tokenize $20 billion worth of its own private placements that the bank also manages.
Wow.
So that's 2 different actually branches or departments within that bank, both going after the same use case and technology for 2 different asset classes in different geographies.
So, well, that shows that management of HSBC is very aligned on prioritizing security tokens and being an innovator. If they've got 2 different branches in 2 different jurisdictions with 2 different types of assets that they want to leverage security tokens for, it's clear that they're pretty bullish on the space.
And of course, beyond, as you mentioned, the 3 major banks that issued their own tokenized bonds, We also have recently being announced with Deutsche Börse, Swisscom, and 3 other banks settling securities on chain using Corda. And we also had that news last week from Commerzbank, Credit Suisse, and UBS successfully executing the first live transactions on the Deutsche Börse's HQLA securities lending platform. So again, major institutional activity happening using tokenization and distributed ledger technology for securities.
They can see that the efficiencies and the cost benefits, it just makes sense. And so they're building, they're working. You don't necessarily see it public facing because they're trying to draw as much publicity away from themselves so that they can just focus on getting this stuff done, focus on building the proper infrastructure and facilitating that moving forward. And it's very, very exciting.
And then we've even seen, activities to specific geographies like Japan coming out of nowhere, really in the last quarter, if you will, and really putting themselves in the forefront, both in examples of 6 different banks coming together and building a self-regulating organization specifically dedicated towards security tokens. MUFG announcing plans. MUFG is the 5th largest bank in the world. They invested in Securitize as well as have their own initiatives in place, including also another initiative in Japan that put together the Security Token Research Council, which will hopefully come up with a lot of very cool case studies and information for the space. We saw the Association for National Numbering Agencies, the ones that assign that ISIN number or QSIPs or you have it, announced that they are looking at security tokens and seeing the need for them to track and standardize securities that are on-chain as well and separate between them.
Yeah, we also see them maybe are pioneering that with Bitbond, with
Right.
the bonds that they're making too, which is exciting.
And then we in one of my personal favorites, Kyle, we saw Spencer Dinwiddie announce that he's tokenizing the first ever really sports finance contract, which is a $34 million NBA Nets contract that is obviously with Spencer Dinwiddie that he will be tokenizing and offering to investors.
It's already been sold out. It was sold out right away. I do have to say, based off of how he's performing, it's going to be a strong investment. He's going to unlock a few performance incentives on that deal that are going to pay back investors in spades. So very exciting deal there.
That one's cool also because of the new use case of sports finance, which really didn't really exist before this. We have the use case of tokenization, allowing people to be exposed in it in this way and the intention of making liquid. And then, of course, there was even that heat from the NBA saying, hey, we don't really want this. But Spencer saying, forget it. You have no right to tell me I can't do it. I'm going forward with it. And he did. And he's even launching a whole platform behind it, ushering what I expect will be a new wave of sports finance as a result. So, again, a really cool deal. We also saw Fat Burger or Fat Brands, if you will, the parent company, do a $30 million securitization backed by the franchise fees. And similarly, we saw an Italian company do out of, was it Germany?
Listeria. Yeah,
Listeria do
it's
something
Germany.
very similar, right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing real use cases where these very institutional issuers, a company like Fat Brands has 200 different Fat Burger locations around LA and the United States. They easily could have gone to a bank or even the public markets to try and source this capital, and they chose to do it via a tokenization. Nothing really is more telling, I can say. We also saw Kyle Merge, the Seychelles-based exchange coming to market trying to disrupt global capital markets and doing so by eating their own dog food, doing the first ever tokenized IPO successfully for their very own exchange.
They're still raising money, by the way. They reached their soft cap successfully, but if you're interested in participating in history, definitely go check out Merge.
And we're seeing a very institutional trend of investing happening this year with Tokeny raising money from ICE-owned Euronext, which I believe is the 6th largest exchange in the world, actually.
They filled a full $5 million round.
Full $5 million round. It does not get more institutional as maybe perhaps this with Securitize, who already had Coinbase and Ripple as backers last year, adding Santander, MUFG, and SBI, among others, to its investors.
Huge banks. That's
banks.
a big deal.
The 16th and the 5th largest bank right there.
Yeah, MUFG is 5th largest bank in the world.
And of major things happening, nothing potentially could be as major for blockchain as a whole as Libra coming to market.
Facebook's Libra.
Exactly, Facebook's Libra, right? And really bringing, as I had just highlighted earlier in the show, a lot of attention to stable coins, to security tokens, and fintech using blockchain as a whole. And of course, with that came a response. We have the Managed Stable Coins or Securities Act of 2019. We'll see where that goes if it passes. If it does, it can certainly have a huge impact on Libra and security tokens industry in the United States alone. And so for sure, just those two alone is very interesting.
We also discussed that topic in much more detail in an earlier episode. I think it was episode 18. So if you want to check out what our thoughts are on
17.
stablecoins, is it 17?
Yeah.
Episode 17. Definitely go check that episode out. We talk in detail about our thoughts on whether stablecoins or securities. The answer might surprise you.
Indeed, go check that out. Next up, we also had some news from one of the most iconic companies in the space globally, which is T0, which is owned by parent company Overstock, which was really launched both initiatives by visionary Dr. Patrick Byrne, who really since even 2013, really from the very beginning, has been exploring this technology and how to apply capital markets. So he's really a security token pioneer. And he stepped down this year and walked away from everything.
Did not see that happening.
Now he's completely out of the picture, and you've got a whole new management team taking over to run the show and charge that vision and make it a reality. And of course, we're seeing that happen. Next up, we also saw Polymath do a kind of shake-up announcement, both with their own management turnover, but also by saying that they're building a whole new purpose-built blockchain called Polymesh with one of the founders of Cardano. Mm-hmm. Tokensoft and Harbor both acquired and launched broker-dealers to become a goal of a one-stop shop for tokenization from issuance all the way to exchange, something that many have thought that is a very useful value add. And of course, Tokensoft itself won our company of the week last week with Fidelity by being the first to develop what we've identified as the first tokenized employee stock option program. And finally, I think also worth noting to end the year on was the Bank of China, and really China going all in on security tokens. The Bank of China tokenized recently almost $3 billion bond and also announced a STO framework to be launched in 2020 for STOs. So really lots of great things happening this year, Kyle.
All around the world. I think that's the most exciting part of this whole industry, is that we're really taking finance and globalizing it. All of these banks, we're talking about Asia, we're talking about Europe, the US, Africa, everywhere around the world, from every corner of the earth, you're seeing businesses raising capital, businesses exploring how to create a global financial market. It's incredibly exciting, and as you said, I think I couldn't have said it better myself. With 2018 was raising a lot of capital, 2019 was deploying it and making these headlines, and 2020 is when a lot of these products are going to be ready to go, and we're all going to be able to work together. That's the hope, and maybe you'll get to hear a little bit more about that in next week's episode.
I think without a doubt, after what we've heard today, Kyle, security tokens are cemented into history. There's no signs of it slowing down. There's no signs of it going anywhere. Success is happening. And like you said, next episode, actually, it's going to be our last episode of the year. So we'll finish off on some predictions and some expectations for 2020. So please join us in not next week, but a week after for that final episode of the year. And of course, as always, you can find and reach out to us either on Twitter or LinkedIn, Kyle Sonlin, Herwig Konings, or of course, find any of the content and articles that we talked about today in the description of the podcast from wherever you're listening to it. Thanks again for tuning in and listening.
Talk to you next episode.